The door to Jiho's restaurant opened with a soft hiss. 5 tall figures walked inside. They were Krell warriors, and everyone on the station knew what that meant. The Krell were proud. They were strong. They never let anyone forget it. Jiho looked up from his cutting board. He was chopping vegetables for the evening meal. His hands moved quickly and smoothly. The knife in his hand was old and simple. The wooden handle was worn from years of use. The blade had small scratches and marks, but it was sharp. Very sharp, human, the lead warrior said. His voice was deep and rough. His name was Vextar, and he carried a weapon on his belt that glowed with a soft blue light. We have heard you serve food here. We will eat. Welcome, Jiho said. He did not stop cutting. Please sit anywhere. My assistant will bring you menus. Yuna hurried over with menus in her hands. She was young, still studying engineering at the station's school. She worked at the restaurant to pay for her classes. She gave each warrior a menu and stepped back quickly. The Krell were known for their temper. Vextar did not look at the menu. He was staring at Jiho. More specifically, he was staring at the knife in Jiho's hand. That is your tool? Vextar asked. He sounded surprised. Yes, Jiho said. He finished cutting the vegetables and scooped them into a bowl. It's a kitchen knife. I use it every day, Vextar laughed. It was not a kind laugh. The other warriors joined in. That primitive thing? It looks like it might break if you sneeze on it. Jiho wiped the blade with a clean cloth. He did not look bothered. It works fine. Fine? Vextar stood up. His chair scraped against the floor. You know nothing of fine blades, human. He pulled the weapon from his belt. It was about the length of his forearm, curved slightly and glowing with energy. This is a death blade. It has been in my family for 10 generations. It was forged in the plasma core of our homeworld. It can cut through starship armor. It can slice through bone and metal like they are air. Other customers in the restaurant turned to look. Some of them moved to tables farther away. Nobody wanted trouble with Krell warriors. Jiho set down his cloth. He picked up his knife again and looked at it. That's nice, he said. But I just need to cut vegetables. Vexitar's face turned a darker shade of purple. The Krell did not like being dismissed. You mock me? You mock the death blade? No, Jiho said calmly. I'm just saying our tools have different jobs. Yours is for fighting. Mine is for cooking. Your tool is weak. Vextar slammed his hand on the counter. Krell blades are superior to all others in the galaxy, especially weak human tools made of primitive metal. Yuna stepped forward carefully. Sir, please. This is just a restaurant. There's no need for— Stay back, girl, Vextar said, but his eyes never left Jiho. I challenge you, human. My death blade against your kitchen knife. We will see which is superior. The restaurant went completely quiet. Even the soft music playing in the background seemed too loud. Jiho sighed. He set down the knife and crossed his arms. That's not really necessary. Are you afraid? Vextar asked. Afraid to see your weak human tool destroyed? Before Jiho could answer, the restaurant door opened again. A human in a security uniform walked in. His name was Hyun, and he looked tired. He looked at Vextar, then at Jiho, then back at Vextar. What's going on here? Hyun asked. This warrior wants to have a competition, Jiho explained. His blade against mine. No, Hyun said immediately. No weapons demonstrations in public areas. Station rules. It will not be combat, Vextar said quickly. Just a test. A cutting competition. We will see which blade is better at cutting different materials. No fighting. No violence, Hyun looked uncertain. I don't know. It's fine, Jiho said. He sounded tired too. If it will make him happy, we can do a simple test. Just cutting some materials. Nothing dangerous, you accept? Vextar looked pleased. Good. We will use the public arena. Everyone can watch. They will see Krell superiority. Sure, Jiho said. He picked up his knife and looked at it again. But I need to finish the dinner service first. People are hungry. Vextar looked annoyed, but he nodded. Fine, tomorrow, noon, the arena. Do not be late, human. The Krell warriors left without ordering food. The door closed behind them. The other customers slowly started talking again. Yuna came over to Jiho. She looked worried. Are you sure about this? That death blade looked really powerful. What if your knife breaks? Jiho shrugged. He started cutting vegetables again. Then it breaks. I can get another knife, but I don't think it will break. How can you be so calm? Yuna asked. Because I know my knife, Jiho said simply. I know what it can do. I know how to take care of it. That's enough. Hyun stayed behind after the other customers left. He sat at the counter while Jiho cooked. You know this is going to be a big thing, right? Word spreads fast on this station. By tomorrow, everyone will know about this competition. Probably, Jiho agreed. He was frying rice now. The smell filled the restaurant. The Krell don't like losing, Hyun warned. If something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong, Jiho said. It's just a cutting test. We cut some materials. Someone's blade does better. Everyone goes home. Simple. Nothing is ever simple with the Krell, Hyun muttered. Jiho smiled a little. Then I guess tomorrow will be interesting. That night, after the restaurant closed, Jiho sat alone in his kitchen. He held his knife up to the light. It was not fancy. It was not high-tech. It was just carbon steel, iron, and carbon mixed together and shaped into a blade. The handle was wood, worn smooth by his hands over many years. He pulled out a whetstone and began to sharpen the knife. The sound was soft and rhythmic. He had done this thousands of times before. He would do it thousands of times again. Yuna watched from the doorway. Why do you sharpen it every day? Because a sharp knife is a safe knife, Jiho said. And because taking care of your tools means they take care of you. Do you think you'll win tomorrow? Jiho thought about that. I don't know if it's about winning. But I know my knife will do its job. That's all I can ask. Outside the restaurant, news of the challenge was already spreading through the station. Humans told other humans. Aliens told other aliens. By morning, everyone would know. The human chef and his old kitchen knife against a Krell warrior and his death blade. Only one would walk away unbroken. The arena was full. Jiho had never seen so many people in one place on the station before. Humans, Krell, Vexians, Torgath, and dozens of other species filled the seats. Some held signs. Some were taking bets. Everyone wanted to see what would happen. Jiho walked to the center of the arena floor. He carried his knife in a simple cloth wrap. Yuna walked beside him, carrying a small bag with his whetstone and cleaning cloth. She looked nervous. Vextar was already there. He stood with his warriors around him. His deathblade was unsheathed, glowing bright blue in the arena lights. The weapon hummed with energy. It looked powerful and deadly. A tall, thin alien with silver skin stepped between them. Her name was Sira, and she was a judge on the station. She would make sure the competition was fair. Welcome, everyone, Sira said. Her voice echoed through the arena. Today we witness a test of blades. The rules are simple. Both participants will cut the same materials. We will see which blade performs better. There will be no combat. No violence. Just cutting. Does everyone understand? Yes, Jiho said. The Krell understand, Vextar said loudly. And the Krell will win. The crowd cheered and shouted. Some supported Vextar. Others, mostly humans, called out encouragement to Jiho. A woman in a white coat walked onto the arena floor. She was human, with gray hair tied back. Her name was Nari, and she was a materials scientist on the station. I will explain each test material, Nari said. She gestured to a table where several objects sat. First test, titanium alloy bars. These are the same alloys used in starship construction. Very strong, very hard to cut. Two large Torgath workers brought out the bars. They set one in front of Jiho and one in front of Vextar. The bars were thick as a human arm and about a meter long. Vextar will go first, Sira announced. Vextar stepped forward. He raised his death blade high. The blade glowed brighter. Energy crackled along its edge. Then he swung down hard. The blade passed through the titanium bar like it was not even there. The two pieces fell to the ground with a loud clang. The crowd erupted in cheers. The Krell warriors roared their approval. Vextar smiled at Jiho. Your turn, human. If your primitive knife can even scratch it. Jiho walked to his bar. He looked at it carefully. He ran his hand along the surface, feeling the metal. Then he positioned his knife. He did not swing hard like Vextar. Instead, he made several precise cuts, working the blade back and forth. It took longer, but after a minute, his bar was cut clean through as well. The crowd was quieter this time. More thoughtful. The cut was clean and smooth. Both blades passed the first test, Sira announced. Cormac, Vextar's second warrior, stepped closer to Vextar. The human's blade is tougher than expected, he said quietly. It does not matter, Vextar replied. The next test will break it. Nari brought out the second test material, crystalline matrices from the mining colonies. Very brittle but very hard, difficult to cut without shattering. Again, Vextar went first. He struck the crystal with his death blade. Energy pulsed from the weapon. The crystal exploded into fragments, completely destroyed. Some in the crowd gasped. Others cheered. It was impressive, but Nari frowned slightly. Jiho approached his crystal. He studied it for a long moment. Then he began tapping the crystal gently with the spine of his knife, listening to the sound. Finally, he found what he was looking for. He struck once, precisely, and the crystal split into 2 clean pieces. Interesting, Nari said. She picked up both results. Vextar destroyed his completely. Jiho cut his cleanly. Both approaches worked, but with different results. The third test was polymer cables. Both blades cut through them easily. Jiho's technique was smoother, more controlled. Vextar's was faster, more powerful. The crowd was divided on which was better. By the fourth test, Jiho noticed something. Vextar's death blade was flickering. The blue glow was not as steady as before. The energy field around it pulsed unevenly. Nari saw it too. She made notes on her tablet but said nothing. The fourth test material was composite armor plating. This is what we use on security doors and safe rooms, Nari explained. Multiple layers of different materials bonded together. Very tough. Vexatar attacked his plate with determination. The death blade screamed as it forced through the layers. Sparks flew. The blade cut about halfway through before Vextar had to stop and pull it back. He struck again and again. On the third strike, he broke through completely. But his blade was flickering more now. The glow was dim in places. Jiho tried his plate next. His knife scratched the surface. He could chip at it, but he could not cut through it. After a few attempts, he stopped and stepped back. I cannot cut through this material, he said simply. Vextar laughed.
Finally.
You admit defeat. The death blade is superior. On this test, yes, Jiho agreed. Your blade did better on this one. The Krell warriors celebrated. They chanted Vextar's name. But some in the crowd looked thoughtful. An old human man in merchant clothes watched carefully. His name was Taeyang, and he had lived on the station for many years. He had seen many things. Sira raised her hands for quiet. The score is even. Both blades have shown strengths and weaknesses. But I noticed something. She pointed at Vextar's death blade. Your weapon is showing signs of stress. It is fine, Vextar insisted, but his voice was less certain now. Nari stepped forward. May I examine both blades? Vextar hesitated, then held out his death blade. Nari looked at it carefully with a small scanner. She frowned. Then she looked at Jiho's knife. She spent less time on it. The death blade's energy matrix is destabilizing, Nari said. The repeated high-energy cutting has created microfractures in the crystal core and... She looked closer. The base metal is showing stress fractures too. Impossible, Vextar said. Death blades do not break. They are perfect. Nothing is perfect, Nari said gently. The human knife, however, shows no damage. Some dulling of the edge, which is normal, but no fractures, no breaks. Jiho pulled out his whetstone. Right there, in front of everyone, he began sharpening his knife. The soft sound echoed in the quiet arena. After a minute, he tested the edge on a piece of paper. It cut cleanly. Good as new, he said. Vextar stared at his death blade. The flickering was worse now. He could see the tiny cracks Nari had mentioned. How had he not noticed before? One final test, he said suddenly. The ultimate test. We cut through a deactivated power core casing. The densest material on this station. Whoever cuts through it wins. Whoever fails loses everything. The crowd went silent. Power core casings were incredibly dense. They were designed to contain massive explosions. Cutting through one was nearly impossible. Sira looked uncertain. That seems extreme. Are you afraid, human? Vextar demanded. Afraid your weak knife will shatter? Jiho looked at his knife. Then he looked at the power core casing being brought out. It was a cylinder of dark metal, dull and heavy. All right, Jiho said quietly. One final test. The crowd leaned forward. This would decide everything. The power core casing sat in the middle of the arena floor. It was massive, nearly as tall as Jiho. The metal was dark gray, almost black. It looked indestructible. Vextar circled it slowly. His death blade still flickered with blue light, but the glow was weaker now. The weapon hummed, but the sound was uneven. Still, the Krell warrior held his head high. He would not show doubt, not in front of all these people. I will go first, Vextar announced. Watch closely, human. Watch and learn what true power looks like. He took a deep breath. He gripped his death blade with both hands. The weapon began glowing brighter. Vextar was channeling all his strength into it, pushing the energy matrix to its maximum. The blade grew so bright it hurt to look at. The humming became a high-pitched whine. Then Vextar struck. The blade hit the casing with tremendous force. Energy exploded outward. Sparks flew everywhere. The sound was deafening, like thunder in the enclosed arena. People in the front rows covered their ears. The death blade sank into the casing. It cut deep, almost halfway through the thick metal. Vextar pushed harder, pouring everything into the weapon. The blade went deeper. 3/4 through. Almost there. Then everyone heard it. A sharp crack like ice breaking. The death blade split. Not cleanly, but along several lines at once. The crystalline core inside shattered. The energy field collapsed. Fragments of the blade fell to the ground, still glowing dimly. The largest piece, still in Vextar's hand, flickered twice and went dark. Complete silence filled the arena. Vextar stood frozen. He stared at the broken weapon in his hand. This blade had been in his family for 10 generations. It had never failed. It had never even been damaged. And now it lay in pieces on the arena floor. "No," Vextar whispered. "This cannot be." Cormac stepped forward, his face showing shock. None of the Krell warriors knew what to say. In their culture, weapons did not break. Especially not death blades. They were supposed to be eternal, perfect, unbreakable. Sira approached carefully. She looked at the broken blade pieces. "I am sorry," she said, "but the death blade has failed the test. It broke before completing the cut. The casing was too strong," Vextar said loudly. His voice cracked. "Nothing could cut through that. It is an impossible test." "Perhaps," Sira said. She turned to Jiho. "Do you wish to attempt the test?" All eyes turned to the human. Jiho stood quietly, his old kitchen knife in his hand. He walked closer to the casing. He examined the deep cut Vextar had made. He ran his fingers along the metal, feeling its density and strength. Then he stepped back. "No," Jiho said simply. The crowd erupted in confusion. People shouted questions. What did he mean, no? You forfeit? Vextar's voice rose with desperate hope. Then the Krell win. "Even with a broken blade, we win." Jiho shook his head. "I'm not forfeiting. I'm just being honest. My knife cannot cut through this material. It was not designed for this. This casing was made to contain explosions, to protect against the most extreme forces. My knife is made to cut vegetables, meat, and fish. Asking it to cut through this would be like asking a transport ship to fight a warship. Different tools for different jobs. Then you admit the death blade is superior," Vextar said. "No," Jiho said calmly. He knelt down and picked up one of the broken blade fragments. He held it up to the light. "May I explain something?" Sira nodded. "Please do." Jiho turned the fragment in his hand. "This death blade is amazing technology. The crystalline energy core, the exotic metals, the energy field. Very impressive. Very powerful. But look here." He pointed to the broken edge. "The metal is incredibly hard, but it is also brittle. It cannot bend. It cannot flex. When it meets resistance beyond its limit, it does not bend. It breaks." He set down the fragment and held up his own knife. "This is just carbon steel. Iron and carbon mixed together. It is much softer than your death blade metal, but that is its strength. It can bend slightly without breaking. It can be sharpened when it dulls. It can be repaired if it chips. It is not perfect, but it does not need to be perfect. It just needs to do its job." Nari stepped forward. "He's right," she said. The death blade was over-engineered. Too hard, too rigid, too dependent on its energy systems. The base metal could not handle the stress of channeling that much power. And once it broke, it could not be fixed. Taiyang, the old merchant, walked onto the arena floor. Many people looked surprised. He was well known on the station, but he usually kept to himself. "I would like to say something," Taiyang announced. His voice was strong despite his age.
"I have known Jiho for many years."
Before he opened his restaurant, he served in Earth's military. He was not a soldier. He was a cook. But in the military, they taught him something important. They taught him about tools, about maintenance, about choosing the right tool for the right job. He gestured to Jiho. "Show them." Jiho looked uncertain, but he pulled out his whetstone. He sat down right there on the arena floor and began sharpening his knife. In the military, they taught us that fancy weapons are not always better. A simple tool that you know how to maintain will serve you better than a perfect tool that breaks when you need it most. He ran the knife along the whetstone again and again. My knife is not fancy. It has no energy field. It does not glow. It cannot cut through starship armor. But I can sharpen it in 2 minutes with a stone and water. I can use it every single day. And if it breaks, which it probably will someday, I can get another one, or I can have this one reforged. He tested the edge on a piece of cloth. It cut cleanly. Your death blade was perfect until the moment it broke. Then it became useless. My knife is never perfect, but it is also never useless. Vextar stared at the broken pieces of his ancestral weapon. His voice was quiet now, all the pride and anger gone. 10 generations, he said. This blade passed from father to son for 10 generations. And I broke it. No, Jiho said gently. The blade broke itself. It was designed wrong. Your ancestors did not know. They thought making it harder, stronger, more powerful would make it better, but they made it brittle instead. He walked over to Vextar and held out his knife. Look at this. Really look at it. Vextar took the knife carefully. He examined the blade. He could see small scratches, tiny chips in the edge that had been ground away, marks from years of use. The handle was worn smooth. It was clearly old. This knife has been through a lot, Jiho said. It has been dropped, dulled, scratched, but every time I fixed it, I sharpened it. I took care of it. That is the difference. Your blade could not survive one mistake. Mine survives 1,000 mistakes because I can fix them. Yuna spoke up from the side. Jiho sharpens his knife every single day. He cleans it after every use. He oils the blade to prevent rust. He replaces the handle when it wears out. He treats it like it is valuable, even though it cost less than a single meal in his restaurant. Vextar handed the knife back. He looked at his broken death blade again. I do not know what to say. In Krell culture, we do not repair things. If something breaks, it is weak. We replace it with something better, but... He picked up the largest fragment of his blade. This cannot be replaced. It was unique. That is the problem, Taeyang said. You made your most important tools irreplaceable. That made them precious, yes, but it also made them fragile in a different way. Sira looked between them. So what is the ruling? Who won this competition? Jiho thought about that. Maybe we both lost. He lost his blade. I could not complete the final test. Or maybe we both won. He showed incredible power. I showed endurance. Different strengths, but Vextar shook his head. No, you won, human. My blade is broken and useless. Yours still works. That is all that matters. He said it without anger now. Just sad acceptance. The crowd did not cheer. This ending felt different than anyone expected. Not triumphant, just real. 3 days after the competition, Vextar came to Jiho's restaurant. He came alone this time without his warriors. He looked different somehow. Smaller, maybe. Less proud Jiho was preparing lunch. The restaurant was empty except for one table where an alien anthropologist named Suji sat, typing notes on her tablet. She had been coming every day since the competition, watching everything Jiho did. Welcome, Jiho said when he saw Vextar. Would you like something to eat? Vextar stood in the doorway for a moment. Then he walked to the counter and sat down. I came to make a challenge, he said. Yuna, who was cleaning tables, froze. Not another competition, she thought, but Vextar continued. You said different tools for different jobs. You said your knife is made for daily work, not for cutting power cores. I want to see this. I want to see your knife do what it was designed to do. You want to watch me cook? Jiho asked. No, Vextar said. I want to compete. 7 days. We both prepare food for the station. You use your knife. I will use a blade too. We see which blade lasts longer doing real work. Jiho set down the vegetables he was cutting. What blade will you use? Your death blade is broken. Cormac has a ceremonial blade. He will lend it to me. It is Krell-made, high quality. Not as powerful as a death blade, but still superior to human tools. The pride was creeping back into Vextar's voice. Jiho thought about it. Then he nodded. All right. 7 days. But we do real work, no tricks, just cooking. Agreed, Vextar said. Word spread again. The human and the Krell would compete once more, but this time in the kitchen. Suji was excited. This is perfect for my research on human culture, she told Yuna. May I document everything? Sure, Yuna said. But stay out of the way during the rush hours. The next morning, both of them started. Jiho's restaurant became a testing ground. Vextar sat up in one corner of the kitchen. Jiho worked in his usual spot. They would both prepare meals for anyone who came in. 7 days, dawn until midnight. Vextar's ceremonial blade was beautiful. It was made of some silvery metal that shone in the light. The edge was incredibly sharp. It had small engravings along the blade showing Krell warriors in battle. It did not glow with energy like the death blade, but it was clearly high-quality craftsmanship. On the first day, both blades performed well. Vextar struggled a bit with technique. He was a warrior, not a cook. His cuts were less precise than Jiho's, but the blade itself was fine. It cut cleanly through everything. Jiho worked with smooth, practiced motions. His knife moved quickly, precisely. Carrots became perfect slices. Meat was portioned exactly. Everything was efficient and clean. Suji watched both of them, making notes. "Fascinating," she muttered. "The human shows years of practice. The Krell has raw strength but lacks refinement." By the end of day 1, they had served 80 people. Both were tired. Both blades were dirty but undamaged. Day 2 brought problems. Vextar was cutting acidic fruits for a salad. The juice from the fruits touched his blade. At first, nothing happened. But after an hour, Yuna noticed something. "Your blade is changing color," she said to Vextar. He looked. She was right. Small dark spots appeared on the shiny metal. The acid was reacting with whatever alloy the blade was made from. Vextar cleaned it quickly, but the spots remained. Jiho's carbon steel knife had no such problems. It had been cutting acidic foods for years. It would rust if not cleaned properly, but Jiho cleaned it after every use. He wiped it down, dried it completely, and occasionally oiled it lightly. "Your blade needs maintenance too," Jiho told Vextar. "All tools do." But Vextar did not know how to maintain his blade. Krell weapons were made to last without maintenance. They were perfect until they broke. He cleaned it with water and hoped for the best. Day 3 was the busiest. Over 100 people came to eat. They wanted to see the competition. They wanted to taste food prepared by both the human and the Krell. The constant work began taking its toll. Vextar's blade was dulling. It still cut, but not as smoothly as before. He had to use more force. This made his cuts less precise. Vegetables were chopped unevenly. Some pieces were too large, others too small. Jiho noticed. During a quiet moment, he pulled out his whetstone. "Want to sharpen your blade?" Vextar looked offended. "Krell blades do not need sharpening. They stay sharp forever." "Does it feel as sharp as day 1? Jiho asked gently. Vextar tried to cut a tomato. The blade crushed it slightly before cutting through. He frowned. "It is fine," he insisted. Jiho shrugged and began sharpening his own knife. The sound filled the kitchen. 5 minutes later, his blade was sharp again. He tested it on paper. It cut like new. Another human cook arrived that afternoon. His name was Doyen, and he was an old friend of Jiho's. He had traveled from another part of the station to support Jiho. He brought his own knife to show Vextar. "This knife is 40 years old," Doyen said, holding up a worn but well-maintained chef's knife. "My father gave it to me when I became a cook. He used it for 30 years before that. 70 years, one knife. It has been sharpened thousands of times. The blade is thinner now than when it was made, but it still cuts perfectly." Vextar stared at the knife. 70 years. Impossible. No Krell weapon lasted that long in active use. They were replaced regularly. Even ceremonial blades were rarely used and carefully stored. By day 4, Vextar's blade had stress fractures. They were tiny, barely visible, but Nari came by to check on them, and her scanner found them immediately. "The repeated impact is creating microfractures," she explained. "The metal is too hard. It cannot absorb the shock of constant cutting, and the acid damage is spreading. The protective coating on the blade is breaking down." Vextar looked defeated. "How does the human's blade have no problems?" "Because it is designed differently," Nari said. "Carbon steel is softer. It absorbs shock better. Yes, it needs more maintenance. But that maintenance works. You can sharpen away damage. You can clean away rust. You can keep using it almost forever if you take care of it." Suji added her observations. "I have been watching both of you. Jiho spends about 10 minutes per day maintaining his knife. Sharpening, cleaning, checking for damage. You spend no time maintaining yours because you do not know how. That 10 minutes of care makes all the difference." Day 5 was when it became obvious to everyone. Vextar's blade was failing. The edge was dull and chipped. The stress fractures were longer. The acid stains had spread across half the blade. It still cut, but barely. Vextar had to use so much force that his cuts were rough and ugly. Jiho's knife looked worn. The blade had a patina from use. It was dulled by the end of each day, but every morning, after sharpening, it worked like new. "I do not understand," Vextar said during a quiet moment. "My blade is made from superior materials. It was crafted by master smiths. It should be better than your simple steel." "Better for what?" Jiho asked. He was cutting onions with quick, precise movements. "Your blade is better at being displayed, at looking impressive, at showing wealth and status. But my blade is better at being used, at being maintained, at doing its job day after day." He held up his knife. "This costs maybe 30 credits. I could buy 100 of them for what your ceremonial blade probably cost. But I do not need 100 knives. I need one knife that works, that I know how to care for, and that will not fail me when I need it." Day 6 brought the breaking point. Vextar was cutting through a tough piece of meat. His dull blade could not cut cleanly. He pushed harder, and the blade snapped. Not completely. About a third of the blade broke off near the handle. The break was clean, along one of the stress fractures. Vextar stood there holding the broken blade. Again, another Krell blade broken. The ceremonial blade that Cormac had trusted him with. He set it down carefully on the counter. "I am finished," he said quietly. Jiho stopped working. Yuna stopped working. Even Suji stopped typing. "You have proven your point, human," Vextar continued. "Your knife has lasted. Mine has failed. The challenge is over. We still have one more day," Jiho said. "What is the point?" Vextar gestured at his broken blade. "I cannot continue." Jiho wiped his hands on his apron. He walked to a cabinet and pulled out another knife. It was older than his usual one, the handle more worn. He held it out to Vextar. "Use this," Jiho said. Vextar stared at the knife. "Why would you help me?" "Because the challenge was about endurance," Jiho said. "About seeing which blade lasts through real work. Your blade failed, but you have not failed. Finish the 7 days. Use a tool that works. Learn why it works." Vextar took the knife carefully. It felt strange in his hand. Simple, light, not impressive at all. But when he tested the edge, it was sharp. "Tomorrow is day 7, Jiho said. "We will both work with carbon steel knives, and I will teach you how to take care of it." Day 7 started differently. Instead of competing, Jiho taught. Vextar arrived early before the restaurant opened. Jiho sat him down at the counter with the borrowed knife, a whetstone, a cloth, and a small bottle of oil. "First lesson," Jiho said. "A sharp knife is safer than a dull knife. A dull knife slips. A sharp knife cuts where you want it to cut." He demonstrated the sharpening technique, the angle of the blade against the stone, the pressure to use, the rhythm of the motion, back and forth, steady and even. Vextar tried. His first attempts were clumsy. He held the knife too steep, then too flat. He pressed too hard, then too soft. But Jiho was patient. "It takes practice," Jiho said. "I have been doing this for 20 years. You will get it." After an hour, Vextar managed to put a decent edge on the blade. It was not perfect, but it was better than when he started. "Good," Jiho said. "Now you understand. This knife is not perfect, but you can make it better. Every day you can improve it. That is the difference." They opened the restaurant and began cooking. Vextar worked slower now, more carefully. He was learning not just to cut, but to cut well, to respect the tool, to work with it instead of forcing it. By afternoon, the lunch rush was over. Jiho made tea for both of them. They sat in the quiet restaurant, tired but satisfied. "I need to tell you something," Vextar said, "about Krell culture." Jiho listened. "We are taught from childhood that anything broken is worthless," Vextar explained. "A broken weapon is thrown away. A damaged ship is scrapped. Even Krell who are badly injured in battle are sometimes considered worthless. We value perfection, strength, completeness." He looked at the knife in his hand. "But this knife teaches a different lesson. It becomes dull and you sharpen it. It gets dirty and you clean it. If a piece breaks off, you grind the blade down and make it smaller but still useful. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is thrown away just because it is imperfect. That is the human way," Jiho said. "We break easily. We get sick, we age. We are not perfect. So we learned long ago that survival means fixing what breaks, healing what is hurt, maintaining what we have." Yuna brought them food, simple rice bowls with vegetables. They ate in comfortable silence. "In your military," Vextar said after a while. They taught you this philosophy? Yes and no, Jiho replied. The military taught me about tools and maintenance, but the philosophy is older than that. It comes from my grandmother, actually. She lived through hard times on Earth. Times when you could not just buy new things when old things broke. You fixed everything. You wasted nothing. She taught me that taking care of your belongings shows respect. Respect for the materials, for the craftsmen who made them, and for yourself. He smiled at the memory. She had one good cooking knife, just one. She used it every single day for 60 years. When she died, that knife passed to me. That is the knife Doyen showed you. The 40-year-old one. It was actually 90 years old. I gave it to Doyen 20 years ago. Vextar's eyes widened. 90 years? One blade? One blade, Jiho confirmed. Sharpened thousands of times. Repaired when needed. Cared for every single day. That blade has outlived 3 generations of my family. It will probably outlive me too. Suji, who had been quietly recording everything, spoke up. This is what makes human culture unique. You do not seek perfection. You seek sustainability. You build things that last not because they are unbreakable, but because they can be fixed. The evening rush came and went. Vextar worked alongside Jiho, learning with every cut. His technique improved. He began to understand the rhythm of kitchen work. The knife became an extension of his hand rather than just a tool. When the restaurant closed, Jiho showed Vextar how to clean and oil the blade properly. How to store it safely. How to check for damage. Tomorrow you return to your warriors, Jiho said. What will you tell them? Vextar was quiet for a long time. I do not know. That I broke 2 blades? That I lost to a human cook? That everything we believe about strength and perfection might be wrong? You did not lose, Jiho said. You learned. That is different. They stood outside the restaurant under the artificial lights of the station. Ships moved beyond the windows, coming and going. The galaxy continued turning. Keep the knife, Jiho said suddenly. What? Vextar looked at him in surprise. Keep it. Use it. Take care of it. Show your warriors that there is more than one way to be strong. Jiho smiled. Besides, I have others. And now you know how to maintain it. That makes it yours. Vextar held the knife carefully. It was just a simple tool, just carbon steel and wood, but it meant something now. It represented a completely different way of thinking about the world. I will treasure it, Vextar said, and I will learn more. Will you teach me? Not just about knives, but about cooking? About this philosophy of maintenance and care? Jiho nodded. Come back when you can. The restaurant is always open. Over the following weeks, something unexpected happened. Other Krell warriors came to the station, not for combat or trade, but to learn. They had heard about Vextar's experience. Some mocked him, but others were curious. Yun, the security officer, watched in amazement as Krell warriors sat in Jiho's restaurant, learning to chop vegetables. I never thought I would see this, he told Yuna. Neither did I, she admitted. But look at them. They are so focused, so serious. They treat cooking like a battle. Maybe it is a battle, Hyun said. A battle against their own assumptions. Nari came by one day with a scanner. She had been studying the broken Deathblade fragments. I have been analyzing the metal composition, she told Jiho. The Krell engineers optimized for maximum hardness and energy conductivity, but they forgot about resilience. They made their weapons strong but fragile. Like glass, she showed him her data. Your carbon steel is 1/10 as hard, but it is 10 times more resilient. It bends before it breaks. That is why it lasts. Is this what you tell them when they ask? Jiho wondered. I try, Nari said. But some lessons need to be lived, not just explained. Months passed. Vextar became a regular at the restaurant. He was not a great cook, but he was learning. More importantly, he was teaching other Krell about what he had discovered. About maintenance. About sustainability. About accepting imperfection. One day, Cormac came to the restaurant. He was the warrior who had lent Vextar the ceremonial blade. The blade that had broken Jiho expected anger. Instead, Cormac sat down quietly. I came to see for myself, he said. To understand what changed Vextar. Would you like to try cooking? Jiho offered. Cormac looked uncertain. Then he nodded. Yes, teach me. By the end of the year, something remarkable had happened. The Krell Empire had started a new program. Young warriors were being taught not just combat, but also crafts. Cooking, repair, maintenance. They were learning that strength came from resilience, not just power. It was not a popular change. Many Krell resisted, but slowly. Gradually, the culture was shifting. Jiho heard about it from travelers passing through the station. He did not think of it as his doing. He had just been a cook with a knife. But Yuna disagreed. You showed them a different path, she said. You did not tell them they were wrong. You just showed them another way. That is powerful. One evening, Vextar came to the restaurant with a package. Inside was a new knife. Not carbon steel, but a Krell-made blade using new methods. It was still sharp and strong, but the metal had flexibility built in. It could be sharpened. It could be repaired. The first of a new generation, Vextar said proudly. We are learning. It will take time. We have centuries of tradition to overcome, but we are learning. Jiho tested the blade. It was good. Not perfect, but good. And it could be improved. That was what mattered. Thank you, Vextar said quietly, for teaching me, for showing me that being broken is not the end, that imperfection is not weakness. You taught yourself, Jiho replied. I just gave you a different tool to work with. They stood together in the kitchen, working side by side. The Krell warrior and the human cook. Two different people from two different worlds connected by a simple truth. Tools could break. People could fail. Nothing lasted forever. But with care, with maintenance, with the willingness to repair what was damaged, things could last long enough to matter, long enough to teach, long enough to change. The knife in Jiho's hand was not special. It was not the hardest blade in the galaxy. It was not the sharpest or the most advanced. But it was still there, still working, still cutting cleanly after years of use. It had outlasted the death blade. Not because it was stronger, but because it was meant to survive. And in the end, survival was the only victory that truly mattered. The restaurant stayed open late that night. More people came than usual. Humans and Krell. Working together, cooking together, learning together. The sound of knives on cutting boards filled the air. Not weapons of war, but tools of life. And somewhere on the arena floor, long forgotten by most, a few fragments of a shattered death blade still lay in the corner. A reminder that even the mightiest weapons could break, but also a reminder that from broken things, new understanding could grow. Yuna swept the restaurant floor at closing time. She found Jiho standing by the window looking out at the stars. Thinking about something? She asked. Just remembering something my grandmother used to say, Jiho replied. She said that humans are like our tools. We chip, we dull, we rust. But as